Hey, Friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And on today's Going In Raw news brief, Shayna Baszler talks adjusting to the main roster. We recap the latest AEW Women's Tournament matches and preview tonight's Impact. But first, will we ever see Samoa Joe wrestle again? Larson, what's in the news?
What's in the news? Samoa Joe, when is he coming back to the wrestling ring? Is he coming back to the wrestling ring? We don't know. We haven't known. But thankfully, he spoke to Sportskeeda recently and gave an update as to when maybe we could see him return the ring. This we had to say, quote, as far as the timetable, no. I just want to reassure people that, at this point, WB Medical is doing the best for my health and my well-being, and I'm appreciative of it. So we're taking our time. We're making sure that I'm as healthy as I can be, and we are. Yeah, I think that's essentially it. I'm not putting a timetable on it because the type of injury is not something that I want to rush, obviously, for obvious reasons. So, yeah, that's essentially the update. And obviously, too, there's been some holdups from a technical standpoint with the pandemic going on and availability of medical personnel. But for the most part, we're taking a careful, measured approach. And though I don't think my in-ring career is over by a long shot, I'm appreciative of the recovery time and that my health is being respected at a premium. You don't want to mess with the brain. If you got brain injury, you take your time. You wait till you're as healthy as you possibly can be. And then, you approach things from there. I think we'd all love to see Samoa Joe back in the wrestling ring because he's great. He's also really, really damn good at commentary. He's great at commentary. We're still getting our Samoa Joe fix each and every week. If there's any question about him stepping into the ring anytime soon would jeopardize his health, then we want a healthy Joe,
Yeah, I'm still irritated that they had that really crappy USA Network commercial, and apparently that's where he suffered his concussion. But apparently there were like 2 concussions in a short span of time.
Yeah, he had one during that. There was that match where he was in and did the suicide dive out of the ring, and apparently he had one then. And that was just not too long before the USA commercial shoot.
Yeah, I agree with everything he said. He's terrific, and I'm glad that they're really keeping a close eye on keeping his health paramount before getting back in. But we have plenty of Samoa Joe on commentary. I think that seeing him in the ring, assuming that he's healthy enough to do it, I think I would love to see that as well. I want it to be that spot where he leaves commentary to get involved in something. Larson,
takes the tie off, rolls up the sleeves, goes in there. It's got to be in front of fans because the building's going to go crazy to see Joe get up off commentary.
Yeah,
step up to somebody, bullying somebody else. Man,
love to see it. You know what else I love to see? People talking about the inner workings of one Vince McMahon. I thought this was pretty interesting, man. So Shayna Baszler was on Renee Paquette's Oral Sessions podcast. And she sort of spilled the beans on her interactions with Vince McMahon upon her arrival to the main roster. And I thought there was just a little bit of interesting insight into the thinking of one Vince McMahon. She said this: when I started wrestling on Raw, he gave me a talk that was like, look, you have something different to offer. You have a unique look. The thing you have to start learning now that you're on Raw is that your work rate is shown on pay-per-view and at NXT, so don't get hell-bent on weekly Raw TV because that's where we build the story for the work rate that you can do on a pay-per-view. So he's like, you have this thing, I don't want you to do any pro wrestling. Got it? And that's actually part of the quote here. He said, got it? Which I think is pretty interesting stuff.
It is. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, please.
It's interesting, assuming that this is more or less. I'm assuming it's a paraphrase what Vince has to say, but it fascinates me to hear him use the phrase work rate and stuff like that. That's fascinating. And that philosophy where you kind of maybe simplify your matches on TV. Because they're focusing more on story, and then you have your really good matches on pay-per-view. I'd say there's not really good matches on Raw and SmackDown because there are sometimes. But the idea that on TV, maybe simplify what you're doing in the ring for the service of the story being told, whether that's just in terms of what happens in the match itself, focus more of your energies on selling the story, whether it be backstage segments, promos, interviews, etc., and getting what you absolutely need to get out of the match. Yeah, if your 20-minute pay-per-view match, you can, do everything you want to there. That's, I've always kind of suspected that would be the case. And hearing Vince talk about it like that seems to be.
We had heard, I think I brought this up maybe once before, and I'm not going to name names, but there's a prominent WWE star who's been around for a while that hung out with a friend of ours. And that friend of ours told us or mentioned that this prominent WWE star had said about a match they had coming up, we're not going to give them, I'm paraphrasing, something along the lines of, we can't give them the full course every time. We have to dial it back so that when we give them the full course, it means more. And that's an interesting philosophy that, I heard from, in that situation, Baszler here. We've heard it in other places
Nakamura mentioned it when he came up from NXT. He said usually you just don't have the time to do everything you want to do. You have to hit the major story beats during the course of the match, and all the little subtleties and details you might have included in a longer bout like an NXT or in New Japan, you can't do on TV because you have like a segment and a half to get your match in.
It's an interesting difference between that and AEW and even NXT. AEW, of course, they have their quarterly pay-per-views. NXT has their basically quarterly takeovers. I know they've added like one to the schedule, but they're fewer and far between. And so you see them have like themed episodes, and on AEW especially, every match they seemingly try. I mean, with some exceptions matches that are designed specifically to hit a specific story beat. But so many of their matches, they really do try to give you the full course on because their pay-per-views are so spaced out. I don't think one is better than the other. I do appreciate on a 3-hour Raw if we're able to get a couple of the, banger matches here and there. You have moments like whenever they do gauntlet matches, or I know your favorite beat the clock challenges.
Love them.
To increase the drama. So it's just a little bit of interesting philosophy on Vince's part. She offered up a little bit more, and this is sort of from Fightful's paraphrasing of some of the conversation. I haven't actually listened to the podcast yet, but I'm anxious to. She says that she felt Vince is really nice, and he offered up genuine critiques of her work. She would say that by the time she started wrestling Sasha Banks and Bayley in the summer, she began to feel more comfortable with her style of wrestling and stopped trying to impress Vince, and that's when Vince finally told her she was getting it. To sort of piggyback on this conversation, I also noticed this the other day. Chris Hero has a podcast now that I'm very much looking forward to checking out as well. And he was asked, and these transcripts come to you from WrestlingNews.co, and on his podcast, Can Chris Hero Save Wrestling? He was asked, do you feel Vince McMahon is out of touch with today's wrestling scene? And he said, I don't know Vince personally. I've met him a couple times, but I'm speaking from my perception of what Vince is, so I don't have any inside knowledge. He says, I don't think Vince cares to be in touch with today's wrestling. I think he has his mindset on what type of product he wants to put out, and he's doing his best to continually put that product out. When certain numbers aren't met, he's like, well, we have to change something. What do we have to change? He has a couple people that have his ear. I'm sure he asks their opinion and their thoughts. I can't say he's out of touch because he's not trying to be in touch. He doesn't care what anybody else wants. He wants what he wants, sometimes at the behest of his performance and his producers, etc. But it's his game. It's his ball. You do it the way he wants you to do it, or you can find a job elsewhere. He continues on. Well, I mean, that's the meat of it. If you want to check out the rest, check out his podcast. But yeah, I don't know. I just, there's so much discussion these days about his age. Is he in touch? And Chris Hero, the supposition there is maybe that's the wrong question to ask. It's does what Vince McMahon views as his product in line what you as a wrestling fan want to watch? And I think there's a conversation to be had.
It's interesting if you look at WWE's past. There's been periods where it seems like he has been trying to capture some semblance of the zeitgeist going on in popular culture. After the Hulkamania kind of ran its course, it was the new generation stuff, and it was very, you look at the graphics for Raw, especially, that it was very like peak early 90s in terms of the aesthetic of it. And they were pushing new young talent. Attitude Era, kind of the same thing. He saw what was working for him, what was capturing the imaginations of his viewers, and ran with it. And is his philosophy in terms of how he approaches his own product different now than it was then? We don't know the man. Don't know. Things are different. He's running a publicly traded company now as opposed to back then, just a family-owned one. We don't know how he runs his business influences creative decisions. Just don't know. Don't know. That's why we need this. We did this Netflix documentary to get insight into the man's mind.
10 episodes. I want 10 episodes.
Rather than just knowing that he likes snow cones a lot and doesn't like sneezing and thinks farts are funny,
I mean, it's funny because you can sort of track. He is a fascinating character because you can kind of track the various stages of WWE product and sort of see how it reflects, like you just mentioned, the business aspect of things. When he went with the Attitude Era, it was out of desperation. When you're desperate, you do, I'm not going to say desperate things, but
take chances you might not have taken before.
You take chances. There's a hunger in what we saw. An urgency exactly. Thank you. With the Attitude Era, now, fast forward and you have, I kind of feel like today's WWE is kind of a reflection of all these big, it's a reflection of big money. It's a reflection of all these big conglomerate entertainment companies, sort of, mergers, acquisitions, all these people sort of lining up to present a certain product in a very corporate way. And I mean, that's presentation. That's not necessarily what you see with the in-ring product, but I think that some of it rubs off maybe. So,
I think the presentation and approach, and approach definitely rubs off on what we see on the in-ring product. I mean the corporate approach to WWE now is fairly evident. And with middling ratings and creative that is at best kind of hit or miss, especially on Raw of late, and yet they're making record profits. It's not a whole lot of motivation or urgency for them to, to use parlance used earlier, get with the times.
Yeah.
And their balance sheet says we don't have to change anything. Yeah. So they probably won't.
Yeah. Speaking of wrestling companies doing stuff, AEW held their latest round of women's tournament matches. I have not seen it yet, but Larson, I know you have.
So why don't you
take us through some of this stuff?
It was an enjoyable hour of wrestling television, even though it was on YouTube. The first match, Nyla Rose versus Ty Conti. I thought this was really good. I feel like this is the best Ty Conti match I've seen to date.
She's getting really good there in AEW.
She is getting really good. The storytelling perspective, especially she was hitting on all cylinders here. So early on, Nyla Rose, she was working over Ty Conti's leg, including hitting this great-looking dragon screw leg whip. Ty Conti counters a D-bar. Nyla kicks out of that. So Nyla's going for a beast bomb. Ty counters that with a Rana, hits a spin kick, gets a 2, goes on a bit of a run, hits a bunch of knees, hits a hammerlock DDT, and gets a 2 count there. But she thought hammerlock DDT, she spiked Nyla. She thought that was it. And commentary was really running with the idea that, yes, Ty is, she's really well trained in all sorts of martial arts, judo and whatnot. But Nyla Rose has the experience as a pro wrestler. And you saw that play out where Ty hits this move, and she thought, okay, that's it, done. I got her. And then Nyla kicks out, and the feeling of urgency, of confusion, of exasperation was all over Ty's face. From a storytelling perspective, I thought it was really well done. Eventually, though, there's a bit where Ty sinks into Dragon Sleeper. Nyla stumbles over the turnbuckle to break the hold, and in the process of doing so, rips off the turnbuckle cover. And so she sets up Ty to try to lawn dart her into there, and Aubrey Edwards, who's the ref's like, no, you can't do that. She grabs the cover, puts it back on, and while that's happening, Ty rolls up Nyla, and she's got an easy 3 or 4 count before Aubrey even turns around and notices it. She comes over to count. Nyla kicks out. Nyla then backdrops Ty to the stage, follows with a Death Valley driver onto the stage. It was great. Nyla rolls her back in the ring, covers. Ty kicks out. And then Nyla follows up with the Beast Bomb to get the W.
All right, sounds
really good match. I was actually it was a really good match to kick things off. And like I said, I felt like it was Ty Conti's best match she's had to date. It was really good. It was really. I was
happy to see the results of this next match you have here: Emi Sakura versus Yuka Sakazaki.
Yeah.
What was the story here in this match?
Emi was more or less destroying Yuka's lower back the entire match. Mm-hmm. In fact, Emi had the upper hand a vast majority of it. Early on, she sends Yuka out to the floor. Mei Suruga and I didn't catch the other name came out with Emi dressed similarly with the jackets and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so at one point, Emi sends Yuka out of the ring. May, and I didn't catch the other name. They start beating up on Yuka ringside. And then Emi hits like a draping backbreaker off the apron. Yuka barely beats the 10 count. And again, Emi's just working over Yuka's lower back, hits a bunch of backbreakers, a storm breaker. Eventually, though, Yuka escapes Angel's wings, hits a sliding clothesline that gets her 2, and then she hits a crucifix pin to get the win. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, Emi and her crew start kicking Yuka. Shida runs down from commentary to make the save.
Oh, there you go. All right, a little storytelling there. I like it. Yeah. I was shocked at the results of this next match here, man. This is one I was looking forward to the most. Definitely going to check this out. Ryo Mizunami versus Aja Kong.
Yeah, this was good too. Ryo, the commentary said, had in 4 singles contests had never beat Aja Kong.
Interesting.
And so Ryo was trying to take Kong off her vertical base, working the legs. Kong would always find a way to kind of power back. Eventually, Kong hits her spitting back fist late in the match. They both sell. Kong is slow to cover. She gets a 2. After that, she tosses Ryo to the floor, and Kong follows, and she grabs her trash can, her little trash can she always brings to the ring. Earlier on, she brought it to the ring, and ref Tommy is like, no, you can't use that. That's a DQ. So she puts it in. So this time she takes the trash can. She grabs Ryo. They walk up to the top of the stage or the commentary where Shida's at. Kong hands the trash can to Shida, then takes Mizunami, slams her head into it, and walks back to the ring. Think an easy count out. So at like 7 or something like that, Ryo is like, I got to get in there, sprints down the ring, gets on the second rope, hits a leg drop right as kind of Aja's head is hovering over the apron, and slams her head into the apron.
That sounds cool, man.
She gets back of the ring. Aja's counted out.
Oh, wow. That sounds great. I'll have to check it out.
It was really good. It was really good. And then the last bout, Maddie Renkowski replacing the injured Anna Jay versus Britt Baker. The story here was Maddie is one of Thunder Rosa's students. So Britt, for that reason, wanted to try to make an example out of Maddie. She attacks her during her entrance, just beats the heck out of her all over the place. Maddie mounts a bit of a comeback, hits the X Factor at one point, and then a corner splash, a face buster, goes for the cover. Britt grabs the bottom rope. Eventually, though, Britt hits an air raid crash, gets a 2 there, puts the glove on, kicks Maddie in the head, sinks in lockjaw for the win. After the bell, curb stomps Maddie. Rebel comes in and draws Thunder Rosa's face paint.
I saw a little
Maddie's
clip of
face.
that. Yeah, rude.
Yeah. So from a storytelling perspective, it was a fun match because
good stuff,
it's going to lead to Britt and Thunder, if not meeting in the semis of the overall tourney semis, at least. Because next week is Britt and Nyla Rose, and then it's Riho and Thunder Rosa.
Yeah, you would think that's going to be the case. You would think that's. I mean, they could always, if they both lose, they could always pick it up. You
could always have a situation where one of them interferes in the other's match, and someone else wins.
Yeah.
Who knows? But again, this for the second week in a row, just 4 really good matches.
So we're looking at Ryo versus Yuka Sakazaki? Is that the situation on the one side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the finals on the Japanese side of the bracket.
Okay. Cool. Right on. We have Impact Wrestling tonight on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Steven Larson. It's always a fun time. You, me, the enforcer, hanging out, shooting the shit, watching some Impact Wrestling. And we have a preview of that. First up, we've got Diener versus Jake something. They really need to give him like a last name.
Well, what's wrong with something? I like that.
It's not a name.
So
it's just it's as if they don't know what his last name is. Why doesn't he just say what his last name is? This is Jake something.
It's just Jake something.
How would you like if somebody was like, oh, that's and something?
Well, I mean, I'm assuming Jake
like,
something
no, I have
probably
a name.
named himself. See, maybe Jake something. His name was Jake something because he considered himself a bit lost now that he got betrayed by his cousin. Is that who?
Yeah, because he was
Peter is?
cousin Jake, and I'm assuming that
Yeah.
it was cousin to.
So
yeah.
I feel like the something is emblematic of his own feelings about himself. He's a bit lost. He doesn't know who he is right now.
Yeah.
Look at it that way, and that's why I like it.
Just look at your driver's license. Willie Mack and Trey Miguel and Josh Alexander taking on Chris Bay, Ace Austin, and Black Taurus. I wonder if that was the match that. That was a match that was supposed to be Sammy Guevara, if rumors are to be believed.
Yeah, and then also Kimberly and Susan teaming up to take on Jordan Grace and Jazz, and then on BTI being the Impact. No, I think it's before the Impact. It's their pre-show.
That's what when I first saw it, I was like, being the Impact, really?
Falaba taking on the Swingman, Johnny Swinger.
Hey, nickel and dimer there, Johnny Swinger. He's no nickel and dimer. He's no ham and egger. Anyways, that should be a lot of fun. We're not going to watch BTI. We're not going to watch Being the Impact, but we'll be in the Impact Zone for the actual show starting at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. Hopefully you'll join us there. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We definitely appreciate it. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.
Help support Going In Raw today by becoming a Friendo Club TV member. You'll get access to new bonus episodes every week, including Friendo Club Arcade, Live Power Rank, Vintage 10 for the Wins, and Ask Steven Larson. Get access to Friendo Club TV today by becoming a $5 and up patron at patreon.com/Steven Larson, by throwing us a sub at twitch.tv/Steven Larson, or by clicking join at youtube.com/Steven Larson.